All right. Episode number 426 is going to be brought to you by a couple really great companies that I love a lot. One is called Organifi, and Organifi is a green powder that contains all kinds of awesome superfoods, super herbs, and minerals and alkalinizing, I can say that, substances in your body. What's really cool about Organifi as opposed to other green juice powders is it tastes really good. You can put it in water and it's got a sweet flavor. It's got a little bit of monk fruit, little bit of coconut sugar, and so it's slightly sweet, but it's got a hint of mint. And it is just so good. It's a gently dried raw food green superfood powder. And what's also cool is that if you don't make a green juice one day, or you can't, you're too busy, got stuff going on with the family, you can always just dump one of their Organifi on-the-go packets into your water, and you get all your superfoods, you get your super herbs, you get all of that really great stuff in your body every single day. I love it. I use it all the time. I put it in smoothies, but I like to just put it in water and go to the gym and use it that way. So if you want to see what all the fuss is about and see the incredible flavor and taste of this stuff, you can go to our show page here, which is extremehealthradio.com/426. And we are brought to you by a really great company called Extrema Cookware. Now, if you guys are familiar, which I'm sure you are because you listen to this show and you are interested in alternative health, a lot of people get exposed to heavy metals in their cookware. And when you're cooking your food on these high temperature environments with this toxic chemical cookware, all that stuff that's non-stick, all that stuff is contains all kinds of chemicals in it, and you don't want to be feeding this food to your kids. You don't want to be feeding it to yourself. Heavy metals have been linked to Alzheimer's and dementia and even autism and things, and we're just getting a toxic overload of heavy metals in our environment. We get it everywhere, and so if you can prevent getting exposed to heavy metals in the food that you eat, that's a huge step. Kate and I have a bunch of their equipment, so we get their stuff all the time, and I really, really stand behind it and love it a lot. So if you want to get some non-toxic, chemical-free cookware that's all organic, go to extremehealthradio.com/426.
I think this Friday calls for a sweet, sassy greeting.
I made one. I made a sweet, sassy molasses.
That's why it's on my brain.
I know, right? How good was that?
So good. That'll send you into orbit, as you say.
Ooh, we need to put that on Instagram. We took a picture of that yesterday.
Took one yesterday.
Yeah, we need to put that on there.
Before I met you, I never knew anyone who said that'll send you into orbit. But that sweet, sassy will send you into orbit.
It is good.
What you got in that thing?
Ooh, let's see. What do I got? I have 4 ounces of coffee. I have the bulletproof coffee that we bought.
Nice.
The old bulletproof coffee. Who knows? He claims it has no mold in it. I have no way of detecting if there's mold in it or not, so we'll take his word for it.
You're not a professional coffee mold detector?
Yeah, we'll just take his word for it. But yeah, it's got 4 ounces. I could only do 4 ounces of coffee. Otherwise, I get
the shakes.
I tried to. No, it just affects my digestion in a really strange way.
Interesting.
But it's got 4 ounces of coffee and I put maybe 8 ounces of water, so I kind of dilute it. And then I have One World Whey.
Yum.
Ooh, that stuff is good. Especially when you combine it with the colostrum. We have the colostrum in there. We have ghee. I don't do the butter. I do the ghee. Mm-hmm. And then I have coconut oil and coconut butter.
Yum.
Some monk fruit and stevia to sweeten it up. About an ounce or 2 of coconut water.
Do you have almond milk in there?
Almond milk, a little bit of almond milk. I kind of mixed the almond milk with the coconut milk.
And then cacao powder?
Cacao powder.
Not carob. Mm-mm. Holy mackerel.
It is good stuff.
I have to say, I can only do little sips here and there right now because the only thing I'm a little concerned for myself at this point is the dairy, even the raw dairy. I have to go a little bit. I have to ease in.
You have to ease in.
And I'm careful with the one world whey because of the
glutathione.
The glutathione. So where I'm at, I'm sure for most people it's fine unless you have like a sulfur or a glutathione issue. But man, like I can do little sips and it makes me so excited.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Yum. Great way to start a rainy Friday morning.
I know, right? It's raining today here.
This is truly a spring rain.
Yeah, it's great. We like it.
So for reference, today is April 8th, 2016.
That's right. It's the day before my reckoning. The day before my is that what it's called? My reckoning?
Your reckoning. Do you want to tell people what your reckoning is all about?
Yeah. So we went to go see a psychic named Pam Crane, and she told me that we work in cycles of, what is it, every 4 months or something?
Yeah, everybody has a 4-month cycle.
Everybody has a 4-month cycle. Mm-hmm. And since
starting on your birthday.
Starting on your birthday.
Right.
So my birthday is December 9th, so we're starting. Did you say what cycle this is, or what are we working with here? What do we got going on?
I don't know if she said what cycle it is, but you are in a cycle in general. I'm not sure if it's more than a 4-month thing, but she said you're in a character development stage.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. Look at me, character development. Defining
what it is you really want and going for it. She makes it sound like with you have all these things coming at you, which you do, and you have a lot of opportunity. Uh-huh. For you, it's to find which one really resonates with you and not overcommit yourself to too many things.
Oh, okay.
And then to run with it. But yeah, so December 9th was your birthday, and then April 9th, and then August 9th. So those are your 3.
So I wonder if it's every 4 months or 3 months?
Every 4.
Every 4.
So you have 3 a year.
Is each cycle, is that like is that predetermined in terms of like, spring, summer, winter, fall, kind of each cycle has its own thing, or is that just based on like, I don't
think so. I think it's just based on, hey, when's your birthday? Every 4 months out from there, and every 4 months out from that. They're always going to be the same every year. You're always going to have the same 3 dates a year. And I don't think it means that like a cycle finishes. So every 4 months you're in this little 4-month cycle and it closes and then you're on to something else. I think it's more like, hey, like she said, for you, your day of reckoning.
My day of reckoning.
Is that you're going to, bam, like you hit April 9th and you're just off and running. You've decided, which is actually very true, I have to say.
It's so bizarre.
From what she had told you, she said you're going to get real clear, because you went, 2.5 months ago?
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah, and she said you're going to have this time period where you're going to get really, really clear on things. You're going to decide what it is you want, and then bam, this date hits and you are off and running. Like you are out of the gates, stuff's being thrown at you, you are going for it. And it's hilarious because today I think is the day that our new production PC arrives in the mail.
Right.
And you have pretty much decided a few new projects you're doing, and they're already in the work. So
yeah, it's so weird.
Come tomorrow,
isn't it?
Watch. We're moving in all our stuff over to the new studio tomorrow,
or today. Yeah,
but it's pretty funny, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's so bizarre. I think that's so crazy because Tom, who we ordered the PC from Eastern Shore Broadcasting. If you guys ever want to start a live video kind of podcast, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Eastern Shore Broadcasting. He's so cool.
Mr. Tom Sinclair.
So he just randomly took a week off, and we had ordered the PC, but then he had to do some testing, and so it's just randomly happened that today it arrived. It would have been a week ago had he not taken that week off to go on vacation. What do you think? Do you think there's something to the psychics, or do you think they're summoning up demons from hell, or what are we going to burn in hell for this for all eternity?
For how I was brought up, I would say that we're summoning up demons from hell for sure. But I have to say, you know what changed my mind is your mom.
Really?
Yeah, your mom's responsible for the demons coming out of the hell pit.
From the demons under your bed?
The demons under my bed.
Really?
Yeah, I met your mom, and your mom's a Christian, and I have to say your mom's interesting to me.
She is.
Yeah. She became a Christian way later in life. So she had this, not sordid past, but this past of...
her past is a bit sordid. She doesn't talk about certain times that she had in traveling around Italy with God knows who.
Hot Italian men.
Oh,
and
man. Little loafers with no socks on.
I love that look. If you're Italian. Please don't start picking that up all of a sudden. No, but she's funny. She experienced a lot of life in really interesting ways. I mean, we'll be at a family dinner talking about, be like you and me and your mom and dad. And we'll be talking about church, and then the next thing out of her mouth is like, "Oh, when I used to live with that transvestite in Australia," and we're like, "You lived with a transvestite?"
Yeah, she would.
Yeah,
go
my
out,
roommate.
and she would go out partying in clubs with
Go to drag
transvestites
clubs
and drag queens and all kinds of stuff, and she has no problem with it.
She has no problem with it. She has no problem talking about it, but yet it's like,
which we don't either. But
we don't either.
But
a
Christian perspective, you should have a big problem with that,
right?
Bad and all that.
So she's funny to me because she's very Christian, and then yet her past is like there's no shame in any of it, or there's no weirdness. So she talks openly about it, which she does share with us, because you said there's sections of her life that we don't know where she was.
I'm not really sure. We'll have to read her memoirs when she translates into another existence.
But I remember she said when I the first couple of years of meeting her, she'd mentioned a few times about when she had gone to a psychic. How old do you think she was?
Well, she was in Italy, so either Italy or England, so she would have been in her probably late 20s.
She was living over there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and she said she went and saw this woman, and this woman basically spoke truth to her, and your mom didn't believe it, but it was all these very specific things that would happen in her life, like 4 or 5 things, and they all happened.
She said she would be married twice.
Mm-hmm. Which your mom hadn't even been married once at the time, right?
At the time, she had not even been married once, never wanted to get married, just wanted to travel Italy and experience that culture. She would... and have a
life-threatening illness.
A life-threatening illness, midlife.
But overcome it.
And overcome it.
Right.
And she had no idea what that meant. And
that she'd have
she said something else.
2 boys.
Oh, yeah, 2 boys. She's crazy.
Which, by the way, yes, your mom was married twice. She married her first husband, didn't work out with him, and was living in an apartment building with her ex-husband where your dad was living. So
my dad was just randomly there.
It was a crazy thing that they even met up, and she ended up getting married to him and not going back to Australia or whatever her plan was, or to Europe. And then, so she was married twice. Then she, in midlife, had this bout with cancer, which is the whole reason you got interested in health. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And then, she had 2 boys, but she would have had 3.
She would have had 3.
Because you were a twin.
I was
whose
a twin.
Twin didn't survive. So
isn't that crazy?
I mean, it's just... So after she said that, I thought, well, this is interesting coming from your mom, like somebody who's a Christian, but still there was this powerful truth in that visit. So I was just open, and you and I have gone a few times.
And she also tried umpteen things to quit smoking back in, I think she quit in 87.
This is right.
And she tried so many things. I remember times when I was a kid, we'd be, going somewhere. She'd be taking me to practice or to go get a haircut or something, and she would stop in the driveway and say, "Oh, can you go and grab my pack of cigarettes?"
Wow.
And I'd run back in the house and get her cigarettes for her. And she would smoke 2 or 3 packs a day, like insane.
She woke up in bed smoking, you said.
She'd
bust
wake up
one out. Wow.
First thing in the morning and start smoking, it's just insane. And so she tried so many things to quit smoking and couldn't do it. She tried for years. Finally, she went to a hypnotist, thinking it wouldn't work. Didn't believe in it, just wanted to try to exhaust her options. And sure enough, it worked. Hasn't smoked a day or touched a cigarette since.
Hasn't even had the desire.
Yeah. And so I never thought that was weird. I mean, at the time, because we weren't going to church, we weren't doing any of that kind of stuff. So I never thought that was weird. But had we gone to church, she probably would not have seen the hypnotist had we been going to church before. And in all honesty, she may have died because she would have gotten cancer sooner and not known it and all that. Mm-hmm. But isn't that weird?
It's when you start living within the... Oh, what'd you say?
Well, think about that. That would be like... God blessed her for not going to church. Maybe.
Interesting. That's weird.
Anyway.
No, it's true.
Yeah, so she went to a hypnotist, and to this day, she doesn't, think anything's weird about that or anything. So...
Well, all I can say is that there seems to be a lot of truth if you find someone who's pretty renowned and respected.
Mm-hmm.
And what little... times I've had working with a few people either over the phone or other energy works or a reading, like, man, I think truth's going to come through in a lot of different ways. And I know that's not a popular, thought process among a lot of religions and things, but I don't know. I just feel like if you have the gift of intuition, and I've said this before on the show, like I've gone up to Christian healing rooms where they'll pray over you, and I get the same exact messages in a prophetic word from them as I get from a psychic reading, and they're all the same message.
Who else did you have one with? Laura Lee, she was awesome. Yeah. I
found her through Gaiam Radio.
Yeah. So what's the deal with that? So you get the same message from a Christian as opposed to a psychic, and I just wonder, if they're all the same, really.
I don't know, but I know that they're not doing me harm. People might argue that that's not true and that you're messing with spirits or whatever, but as far as, I don't know. They've been nothing but helpful, these words coming from all different sources. Mm-hmm. And I still hold them loosely because I know free will plays into it a lot. But I do think there is a power in numbers and symbols and the years you were born. And there's no accident why we were born, the year, the day, the minute. And why we're in these cycles. It seems to be these real cycles of life, of letting go, of moving on into the next thing, of this birth, life, death, rebirth kind of a process that everybody talks about. The first time I heard that concept was in The Women Who Run with Wolves. That has been one of the most influential books I've ever read. Mm-hmm.
Really? Did you say it was hard to get through?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's tough, mother.
But it's isn't it good every now and then to read a book like that?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's kind of tough, but they have such profound impacts in your life and how you think.
You're going through that right now. You said you didn't resonate with the book. Did you finish The Seed of the Soul?
I finished it last night, yeah.
Oh, you're sad. I hate when you come down from reading the best book.
Yeah, I want to read some more of his books. Gosh, he's so good. I did a video on it, but...
Oh, good.
So what did you say about Women Who Run with Wolves? What was
that was the first... invitation to the idea of this birth, death, rebirth cycle. The whole book is about that cycle, on a physical level, emotional level, and then just all the cycles of things we go through. It doesn't actually mean being born and dying, but everything that happens in between, that we're born and reborn, and we die again, and we come back to life again, and we're reborn, and it's just through these tales and different cultural stories that she weaves.
Is it a fiction story?
No. It's the stories they're mythical, and you could call them fiction. It's like somebody could call the Bible just a story.
Right.
So to some cultures, it might be complete truth. Oh. To most people, they look at it like Greek mythology or some kind of like tall tale or legend. But the truths that come out of these, whether they're true or not, they hold so much truth in them. Mm-hmm. And I just think we go through cycles. So if someone's got this gift of intuition where they're able to pick up on these cycles and patterns and are able to make a sort of a prophetic claim of what might go down and what might happen next, or what you might be predisposed to based on some sort of cycle they've seen or studied, then I think that's where they're getting this information, along with just like being spirit led. I think that when you're being led by your heart, weird things that don't make sense start happening. Like yesterday, I was driving home from Whole Foods, and I just felt this overwhelming desire to turn off my radio and just do a round of alms.
No way.
Never done that before. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to roll with this, because we've been watching a lot of really bizarre... Well, we posted on our Instagram. For those who want to go and follow us on Instagram, there was this thing with the water, with our Vitamix that happened this week.
That was so weird, wasn't it?
Basically, you were making some kind of, I think, your sweet, sassy, molassy drink, right?
Yeah, because I went to the gym after that. Yeah.
Something with coconut water and, fats and sorts, like ghee and stuff. You poured out your thing, you kind of rinsed it out, and then you left the Vitamix blender carafe soaking in
water.
The sink.
The sink water.
Yeah, like 3/4 filled with water. And
I was lazy. You know what? I almost did the dish, or, cleaned it before I left, but I'm like, I'll just do it when I come back.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, for some reason it prompted you just to let it go.
Yeah.
So you let it go. You were gone at the gym for a few hours, and while I was getting ready to wash the dishes, I go to the sink, and I'm like, holy mackerel. There was, for those who have Vitamixes will understand this, but there's a blade that spins around the bottom that has 4 different little, looks like a propeller.
Yeah.
And 4 different little blades. And what had happened is the water that was soaking in the Vitamix had formed on top the pattern of the blades that was at the bottom
and
of
not
the
only
carafe.
Did it create the pattern, it created the exact pattern
of where it sat at that point.
So like if you had I'm just trying to picture this, like a throwing star, like a Chinese throwing star, and you put 2 of them, they're identical, like they lined up perfectly. And not only did it line up, but the actual blades themselves have a certain shape to them. And so the shape was even perfect.
Yeah, 2 of the blades are more straight, and 2 of the blades have this weird curve.
Yeah.
And the water, I think it must have been gathering some pieces of the fat.
But how does it do that?
There was something, and it pulled itself into this perfect formation that doesn't make any sense why a half of a foot apart it would create that pattern on the top of the water. I've never seen anything so weird.
And you know what's weird is that that's just municipal tap water. It's not like we have a Berkey, which is awesome, the water we drink, but this was just tap water. So our home, when we move, we're going to get a whole house filter and maybe double filter and things. But this is just regular tap water. It's just sitting in the Vitamix, correct? What is that?
Right.
So what was your point bringing that up?
Yeah, so that happened, and then you brought up this awesome video. I don't know if you can link to it, but it's like this science experiment where they pour salt or sand on some kind of plate, and they bring it up to different vibrations, different frequencies, and you can watch the thing. Is like 8 minutes long or something.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that.
We'll put a link to the video, but basically the frequencies make the salt, is it salt or sand?
Salt or sand, yeah.
Form into all these different geometric patterns. And it's like, okay, between those 2 things, I'm like, I don't know what the heck is really going on, but we're not getting the whole story. And we all know that anyway. But I mean, to what extent we aren't getting the whole story, excuse me, I'll never know. So I'm like, okay, so something inside me resonates with a sound, and I know how important sound and water is and things. So when I felt the desire to start alming in my car, I'm just going to roll with it. So I turned off the radio, and I did like a series of maybe 7 alms just all by myself in my car. And it's really strange. It's weird that it slows your breath down. It makes you really calm.
Remember we did that when
resonated with me.
In Dominican. We did the
I do remember that. We all, as a group.
Uh-huh.
It is beautiful. There's something about it, that sound. I thought, if this is part of a healing for me, and I'm missing this sound vibration, and I feel led to add it in, then I'm just going to roll with what seems weird. So whatever happens, I just go with my instinct on it, and it's pretty cool. I'm learning to tap in more too. I think I do have that gift of intuition. I've always known that, but
I want to talk about your supposed past life as an Indian sage and shaman. But before I get to that, in response to your experience and the sound and watching, there's an article here that I sent you. Scientists prove DNA can be reprogrammed by words and frequencies. So we'll put a link to this article too. It says the human. I'll just read like a sentence or two.
Please, yeah.
The human DNA is a biological internet and superior in many aspects to the artificial one. Russian scientific research directly or indirectly explains phenomena such as clairvoyance, intuition, spontaneous and remote acts of healing, self-healing affirmation techniques, unusual light auras, which makes me think of what is that thing that what is that light therapy that what's his name uses at the float tanks?
Hold on.
We'll put
Pandora Star.
Pandora Star. Unusual light auras around people, namely spiritual matters, mind's influence on weather patterns, and much more. In addition, there's evidence for a whole new type of medicine in which DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed by words and frequencies without cutting out and replacing single genes. So we'll put a link to this article. This is a really good article.
So what is that proposing? That's pretty heavy.
So DNA, apparently our biological, physical matter, our DNA, can be somehow manipulated. They say reprogrammed by words and frequencies.
Okay, well, if that's what alming is doing for me,
well, think about it. It's doing it to the sand, right?
Right.
On top of that thing.
Yeah, that's what encouraged me to just go with it, because I thought there's too many things, even within this week, that are proving themselves to be oddly working on some level, and I don't understand it. But
how many ohms did you do?
I don't know. Maybe we were looking at like 6 or 7, maybe.
Are we looking at 6 or 7?
Yeah.
6 or 7 ohms. How long did each one last?
Well, that's what's funny. It surprises me how long your voice could actually go without losing your breath. It reminded me of like the Wim Hof style stuff. Like, it shocked me what I was capable of. I thought, why am I not running out of breath, or why am I not getting lightheaded? Or, I mean, each one was probably a good 35, 40 seconds.
Really?
I'm just driving along in my car and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these people next to me, if they were to look over, like, why are her lips like pursed? Like, like I probably looked like some kind of weird wolf.
Did you see, we posted, speaking of water and things and programming, we posted a thing on our Facebook that there's like a couple, it looks like there's, I'm not even sure how much this would be, a couple drops of water, but they've been able to put 1 million copies of a movie. I don't know what the movie is. It's called A Trip to the Moon. They put 1 million copies of that movie into this water. There's a video on our Facebook site about that.
What?
Yeah.
Did you just post that today?
That was posted, today, April 6th.
So what does that mean? How do they know that those 1 million copies are in those water drops?
Oh, good question.
Do you know?
How do we know that? Yeah, they're just telling us.
How can they claim that?
And how have they counted? Like, did they count 1 million? Was it like they have 1 million copies of the movie and then they moved 1 million from one place to another so that the way you know that they're all gone is that there's the original
There's nothing
source,
left?
Yeah, had no copies, or did they count each one that went into the water? Good question. See, we need to question stuff more.
I wonder how that even works. So they're taking like the vibration, like if that movie is just a series of vibrations or sounds or whatever, they're condensing that and throwing it into the water. I mean, what makes a copy a copy?
Let me play
like if you burn a CD, you're making a copy of a whole soundtrack or a whole record.
Within the water, the DNA is being used to store data. DNA is unimaginably small. Up to 90,000 molecules can fit into the width of a human hair. But I don't know how they're doing this.
I wonder how.
But so this is going to change like the way storage is, and this could change everything.
Well,
computer chips,
computers. Yeah, I was going to say everything's. So that if that's true, I mean, no matter what, I feel like we're finding that we know nothing about water and its infinite possibilities.
You know who talks about water too is a guy named, Dr. Leonard Horowitz. Okay. And he has this whole thing called the 1111 spin frequency. And so he talks about like there's some sort of frequency where, if you picture the water molecule, it has other electrons, I think, that stick to it, and it looks like a Mickey Mouse with the ears.
Oh, right.
And the distance between the two ears of the electrons, I don't know what it is, maybe I forget how he explains this, but the distance between the two molecules is some sort of mathematical ratio that corresponds with love, and he does this whole meditation, this worldwide meditation. And
is he alive, or is he an old school guy who's passed on?
He's alive, yeah. Leonard Horowitz? Is it Leonard Horowitz? I think it's Leonard Horowitz. So we have no idea what the hell is going on with all this stuff.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I used to be more frustrated. I get frustrated that I can't figure out what's going on with like the elite and like their intentions and things like that, and how the world works that way. And that bothers me sometimes.
Me too, yeah.
But what doesn't bother me is the vastness of the way that nature and bodies and I guess just nature works. That to me is a fun place to be in the questioning, and maybe to be okay with not knowing more than it is for me to not know like why wars are started or what their real intentions are behind those kinds of or the the pharmaceutical industry but it's cool to live in a place with nature where you're just in awe,
complete awe.
Oh, it's so cool because it means anything's possible.
Yeah, it's insane what happens in nature and how the system works, no matter what you believe about how it started or whatever. Just the laws of nature and the cycles of life that we're in. We're so disconnected from it. There was something about, what was I going to say? Something about water. Something about reprogramming water. Oh, man. It went away from me.
Man.
Yeah, I can't remember.
If it comes back to you.
Yeah, something about reprogramming water. What was it? Oh, well. Thoughts for another day.
Well, if it comes back, please interrupt.
Yeah.
I just finished the book Wild by Cheryl Strayed.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good, but she talks about something that's really cool. She talks about... Oh, yeah.
I remembered it.
Tell me.
Okay. Don't forget the Wild.
Yep.
So Dr. Massey, I got to tell you, I'll tell you a couple things about what we talked about yesterday in this interview that I did with Dr. Massey. But he was saying that the water that we drink, if people drink tap water, like people don't understand the homeopathic frequency vibration connections between tap water and our bodies. So like your parents, they drink tap water. Mm-hmm. And so the physical structures of things have been taken out of tap water through chlorination and all the chemicals they use to treat it. But what happens is that there's the homeopathic vibrations that are still left.
Okay.
And so because we are water, we're just water bags. And we take in
water bag.
that homeopathic vibration that's in the frequencies of tap water or municipal water, that has an effect on our biology and how we think, and the chemical and the homeopathic, like energetic flow of energy. And so we start thinking different, and we have it does stuff to our neurological brain and all this stuff. Because we're taking in the same way that you would take homeopathics to treat yourself, like remedies. If you drink water that's untreated or unfiltered, you're going to be taking that's a homeopathic of the death and destruction, of chemotherapy, of hate, people that are upset, all this stuff.
Wow.
And so if we weren't water, maybe it wouldn't affect us as much. But since that's water and we're water, the two come together like a magnet, and it has some sort of effect on the way we think and everything.
Is that a new thought, or have people thought that forever within the alternative?
I've never heard anyone say anything about that except for Dr. Massey.
Dr. Massey's so interesting to me.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Because if water carries the vibration and it has the power to change, until you change it, it probably carries on it's like until you change your story in your mind, it'll continue on in that same destructive way. You know? I
know.
Interesting.
So what's the deal with this book, Wild?
That's interesting. Oh, I just love that she takes this hike on the Pacific Crest Trail from, that's I think we mentioned this in the last show, the trail that goes from Canada to Mexico or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, she talks, I think it's kind of near the beginning, about what people on the trail called the magic of the trail, or trail magic.
Oh, yeah?
And it's what happens when you get out there all alone, and you're hiking along, and nature and the trail just truly starts speaking to you in a way that you can't get in your normal life. There's something that they call like the magic of the trail, because it seems different. Most people don't have those experiences in their everyday life, because first of all, we're not in nature. Right. But second of all, you're not looking for the magic. When you're out in a place, like this is what happens to me every time I go to Montecito on my retreat. I mean, I say over and over, I laugh, but I say God lives in Montecito, because every time my friend Robin and I go, or I go by myself, we think, oh, I hope this doesn't ruin it. I hope that it's going to be as magical as the last one. I hope that God's going to speak to me as much, or I'm going to connect with my roots, or return to nature as I was the last one. And every time, I've been going for like 2 years almost, it never lets me down. It's like, you jump on the trail, you expect trail magic. You go to your place where it's sacred, you're going to get sacred magical things happening to you.
Wow.
And there's something about that. I don't know if it's, the just being in the natural realm that facilitates that, or it's a vibration, and your body returns to this place that you expect, and the water in your body is like, okay, where am I going to resonate at? How can I get back to that frequency? So it's almost like all the water in your body might change when you go to a place like that, and it's like, oh, I'm home again. This is what we jump into this, and it becomes this place of magic and wonder. And
I totally believe that, because remember on that podcast with Daniel Vitalis, he was talking about wild air.
Yeah.
And not just like cleaning the air in your house, but actually getting out into the wild and breathing the air in the forest.
What was that quote about breathing the wild air? Is that Oscar Wilde? I'll look it up while you talk, okay?
Yeah, and so when he was talking about that, and then in conjunction with, we mentioned this guy last week, Rupert Sheldrake, on the morphogenic field. And if you combine those two ideas, I really think there's something magical and energetic about getting out in nature. I think there's some sort of, like, if you were to imagine, if you could see the field, it would almost probably look like you're enveloped in a cloud, some sort of smoky, some sort of smoky dusk kind of thing where you're just in the center walking through. And that field carries with it the energy of the birds that fly by, the animals that were there last night, the plants communicating with one another, and all of the stuff that happened on that land previously, as well as the air blowing through the leaves of the trees, so that air is going to carry more carbon dioxide and oxygen, and and so the air is going to be cleaner, it's going to be chemical free, and you're going to have the energy of the earth actually being connected to you. And so I think if you could see the field, it would almost be like a cloud.
Yeah, like
you're
a
walking in the middle of
smoky
it,
fog.
and you're wondering why. It's kind of like how when you take a shower, you get all these ideas, probably because the water pipes are grounded. And so I know I take a shower at night, and it's like I just brimming with ideas of things to do for the site or different projects. And that's what happens when you go on a hike out in the wilderness. It's like you get a chance to reconnect that vertical. Remember we were talking about this a few days ago. That vertical connection instead of that horizontal connection that we have with the rest of life on the earth. We get a chance to open up that vertical channel to receive and to hear. And I think that's what happens when you get into that. And so it makes total sense.
I want to talk a little bit about that, but I did find the quote, Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is one of my favorites. That's nice. What it is. Live in the sunshine, swim in the sea, drink the wild air.
No way.
But have you heard that one? Drink the wild air. That's just, and he's this old dude. It's a black and white picture of Ralph Waldo Emerson. But I've seen it written all over things, on Etsy or on Facebook, or it's all in beautiful quotes. But man, it's drinking the wild air is what it's all about. It does something to you. I think that you're right, though. I think what you talked about is that fog type thing, and this goes along with this. Can I read you this part of this book?
Well, think about this real quick too. When you're breathing that air, that energy and that frequency and vibration, even if it's homeopathic, and even if we don't have any way of measuring what that is, you're breathing that into your lungs, and you're bringing that homeopathic frequency of the wild nature. That is where we're supposed to be. You're breathing that. It's almost akin to just eating an organic apple off the tree. It's so, I don't know, it's so powerful. I think there's so much to it.
It's weird to think that we are. I love that idea of breathing in. We're all breathing in recycled air. We're all one in that way. We're, people have surmised that we're breathing the same air Jesus did, and Buddha did, and Gandhi did, and our grandparents did, and these generations of wow, then that air, if air and water is what makes us alive and animated, these things can't help but become you. So it's like the wild air. This air it has everything in it.
It's amazing.
It's everything in us and everything in everyone else, and we're all sharing it, and it's just this.
And so think about living in a city where not only are you cut off from the wild air and the frequencies of nature, but you're also getting the frequencies and the energy of the people around you, and the stress that they carry, and the anger that they carry, and all of the idiosyncrasies and weird hang-ups that they have. And you get all this hustle and bustle. That's why people, why is it when you go into a city, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just nuts. You're in LA or you're in
New York,
Sao Paulo or New York. And then when you go out into nature and you breathe, and there's something different that's going on.
Yeah.
And so I suspect that it may be hundreds of years until we can actually figure out scientifically
what it is going on.
But we all know it to be true.
Yeah.
That's why we go. People don't go to the middle, to the heart of an apartment on a four-way stop in the middle of Los Angeles for vacation. They go to the woods.
Right.
People just know it.
But it's funny that there's there's the people that live in cities who can't, they go kind of stir crazy. They can't be by themselves for more than a day in the nature because they're feel like the wild animal, taken out of their habitat. It just doesn't work for them. They're not used to it. Yeah, they probably have these frequencies. It's probably just like a cleanse. They got these frequency energies stuck in their body, and they have to stay out there in the wilderness long enough for that stuff to come out. Well, that's why there's so many books and bestsellers, like the monk who sold his Ferrari or whatever. There's so many stories about these people who have enough of the rat race, didn't know they were in the rat race, and became completely the opposite. I think the monk who sold his Ferrari is about a guy who's working the corporate ladder, sick of it, living in a high rise, and ends up becoming a monk, Wow. Because I think that if you're with yourself and you work through the discomfort long enough, you're going to crave
something
real.
For
your soul, and then you can't go back to life as you used to, you know?
Yeah.
Check out this, though. This is interesting. I just started a brand new book by Denise Lynn, who I love. I've read a couple of hers, but it's called Kindling the Native Spirit.
Look at you.
I know. Sacred practices for everyday life.
Little miss, I used to be in a past life, an Indian.
A medicine woman. I have to read you, though, in the preface, what you were talking about, this fog cloud thing.
Oh, in nature?
This is really cool. Can I read these 2 paragraphs?
Sure.
So she says, the native spirit surfaces in many forms. I felt its arrival early one misty morning as I stood alone on the edge of an isolated mountain lake in the Cascade Mountains. Mist shrouded the water. Everything was still. Not a bird or an insect, nothing. Not even the subtle sound of lapping water on the shore. Total stillness. It felt like the world had inhaled, and now it was waiting. Waiting for the next breath, waiting for something big to happen. I don't know. I felt like I'd also inhaled, but I was also waiting. But for what? Then the world around me seemed to exhale. The song of birds pierced through the mist. I could hear the lapping sound of the water at the shore. Sunshine began to filter through the thick fog, and the water sparkled in places where the light had penetrated. Remarkably, the rising mists seemed to be shifting into strange shapes. When I refocused my eyes, I, quote, saw thousands of luminous, almost beings, as if they were hovering just above the surface of the lake. There was a solidarity and nobility in their countenance. Without knowing, I knew these were my ancestors. It was not just my Native American ancestors. It was all of my ancestors. There were so many of them, I could see them to the farthest and beyond of the lake and beyond, as if they were floating out of the mountains and across the surface. They said nothing, but I had the feeling of a powerful community standing together who were saying, you're a young sprout on a very old root. We're here for you. Remember, you're not alone. Then, just as the mist evaporates, so too their diaphanous forms dissolved into the sunlight. And I thought, isn't that, like, I read that last night in the bath going, whoa, like, that painted such a beautiful picture of this, like, misty fog that held something so amazing in it, and they came to life, and then just like that they faded back away.
Isn't that amazing?
The wild air, look at what the wild air and connecting to nature can do for people.
So what's the deal? You told me before the show that you think in a past life you were a Native American.
I think I probably was
in one of your past lives.
Well, it's funny because reading through this, the what do you call this? Not the titles, the chapters, the sections of this book. When you open it up, my mouth about dropped open. There's a part that says blankets, spirit of the robe. And I thought, isn't this funny? I've had these things, like the last year, I've had this overwhelming desire to make this kind of like blanket shawl thing and make it my own and put pieces of my spirit into it and wear it. I've always felt like I wanted to wear it around my shoulders when I write, when I'm writing my book, when I write my journal, or even when I sit in the middle of a labyrinth or take a labyrinth walk or go on my retreats. It has to be something I've really felt connected and very inspired to make this thing. So I'm going through this book going, what in the world? This is something I've already known in my soul I connect with, that just I haven't read that part yet, but I go, wow, there's something more happening here that's been erased from me that I know I connect with.
Well,
so yeah, I think I was an Indian.
I mean, look at most ancient cultures and spiritual teachers like the Buddha, Jesus. I mean, they all are represented wearing like long robes and things. So what's that about? You know,
a priest,
a Catholic priest.
You're right. Everybody puts on monks. I mean, everyone's putting on robes. You're right.
You know, David Wolf calls it his superhero cape. His what do you call that?
His cape.
No, but what's that called? Poncho.
Oh, that's what he calls a superhero cape?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's made from hemp, and hemp is apparently a notorious
conductor,
protector from EMF. Oh. And so you know how he travels so much.
Maybe it's a protector from EMF, but a conduit of energy.
Well, he says it's a blocker of EMF, and so that's why he wears it on the planes, and why he wears it so much to protect him from that.
I didn't know that.
And then they're handmade by this lady he knows in Peru.
Wow.
And so she puts all this work into it, and it's made with organic dyes, and it's got all these colors for like color therapy. And so like he calls it his superhero cape. It's kind of funny.
That's
kind of
actually
like what you're talking about.
Right. Isn't it funny though? Some people are drawn to things like that without knowing. I didn't know that was David Wolf's intention or why he does that.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like this crazy guy with, this huge afro haircut.
I love him.
And all these things, but he's got a reason for why he does that, and it's funny that it's kind of like what you're talking about a little bit.
Totally. But now that you've got me thinking about this robe thing, it's interesting. I mean, Star Wars.
Yeah.
All the Obi-Wan, and they're all wearing these, even Yoda. I mean, they're all wearing these capes. And
then Jesus, remember the guy who wanted to be healed, just wanted to touch the cloak of his garment or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or the edge of his garment. So
Jesus wasn't wearing pants then. He was wearing a dress.
He wasn't wearing Levi's. 501.
Yeah, there's something to that, but it's...
I prefer you not wear that kind of clothing. It's not very... I don't find it to be very attractive, but... But there's something
good thing he's not modern day hipster.
Yeah, all the Muslims, they wear robes and everything.
There's something very sacred.
Something weird about that, right?
Yeah, it's just funny that I remember another situation last fall when I went to a conference with my friend Robin. And we were hearing Graham Cook speak, and he was traveling around. And there was this part, it was so strange.
Tell people who Graham Cook is.
Graham Cook's cool. He's like a lot of people love it. It's like one of those things where it's pretty polarizing within the Christian community. People love him or hate him. They think he's either a prophet of God or he's some jokester who's way off base.
Right.
But I think he has a lot of amazing things to say, and his message is all about grace. It's grace and love and grace and love, and he's basing it off of biblical principles, but he's taking it to the nth degree of, I think, how Jesus would have been talking about. Isn't that what Jesus came to do? It's all about forgiveness, love, and grace. But we make it into this thing where I could go off on that. But anyway, he's awesome. So people who go tend to be these really free people. And it was neat. Like during their worship time, people are like cruising along doing like sacred dances with banners and crepe papery type flags and, doing these really things that look strange. And you're kind of a little turned off going, well, this isn't a parade, But then you're talking, you read about, that something in their soul is causing them to dance. It's like when you see somebody really into a rock concert and they're just like going crazy. Or you look at the Woodstock hippies that some of them weren't even on drugs. They were just really into the music.
In trance,
and it's this sacred dance of trance type thing that I think even Denise Lynn goes into, and a lot of like Soulcraft, the other book I read. All about the sacred dancing and how...
Should I read that?
Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
You would love it. You would love it. I'm blanking on the guy's name right now, but yeah, Soulcraft. But, so Robin and I were at this Graham Cook conference, and at the same... Okay, this is weird. She and I were sitting together in a row, and we both had scarves on because it was October, and we were kind of putting them around our shoulders. And he was speaking. It wasn't even during like a music, like a worship time. And I felt this like overwhelming desire to put my scarf over my head and put my head like in my knees and just like lean down and like just lay into like a crumpled ball, like in my chair, just like fold over and put this thing over my head. And I thought, that is weird. I think I'm just tired. Robin and I just come from our retreat. We were all relaxed, and I thought, I don't know. So I ignored it. And I closed my eyes and I'm listening to him, and I just kind of like went into this trance. Well, like a minute goes by and I open my eyes and I look over, and Robin is laying in the crumpled over position with her scarf over her head. I've never seen such a thing, and I'm like, this is tripping me out. Why did she just do that,
Well, maybe she saw you?
No, I didn't do it.
I thought you had done that and you sat up.
No, I didn't do it. I wanted to do it, but I thought it was too strange. And I thought people are going to think I'm weird in my aisle, so I'm not going to do it.
Oh, okay.
So I ignored it.
Okay.
I look over, and she's doing it. This really strange thing that neither of us have ever done before.
Okay.
And I was just, what in the world? So at the next break, we got up and we walked around, and I said, I looked over and I saw you had your scarf over your head, and you were like putting your head in your knees. I basically was like, why did you do that? And she goes, I don't know, I just had this overwhelming urge to do that, and so I just did it. And I told her, I said, you won't believe this. I had the exact same thing hit me, probably the exact same time, and I didn't do it because I thought everyone was going to think I was weird.
So you look at you.
And she looked at me, and she's like, at these conferences, anything goes.
She's more in tune with herself.
But isn't that weird that we both had that it was like this connected, and she and I are very close, like we're very soulmates like that.
Yeah.
But for some reason that was something, so I thought whether people are standing up and dancing, or whether you want to say, sing in your car, or whether you want to, whatever it is that you feel like you need to do, it's so neat to connect with your soul on that level.
Right.
It's powerful.
Wow.
Isn't that funky, though?
That's weird. I mean, there's been so many instances of that kind of stuff happening where two people are thinking the same thing. You're thinking about somebody and the phone rings, or you're thinking about someone and they're standing behind you.
Totally.
Stuff like that.
It's the 100th monkey or whatever.
I think that has a part. I think the more you connect with the vertical, I think the more that happens, And I wonder if it's this, type of thing. People say where, like, you and I could read each other's minds, say. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, like, I'm looking at you right now across the table, and I'm sending you a message. It's flying through the air, and it's going into your head.
Pink elephants.
But what if it's more like this? What if it's more like you and I both connect to the vertical? So the message that I want to send you is kind of like connecting to the cloud. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right. There's a cloud of consciousness that holds all the consciousness somewhere outside of our bodies.
So let's say it's this. Let's say it's more like me sending you a message through thin air. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's more like email. So when two people connect to email, the way it works is that the email doesn't fly through space and land on your computer. Mm-hmm, the email goes to like some email server in the cloud. Mm-hmm. And then you use your computer to connect to your account within it. And then you see my message there. Okay, right. So what if mind reading and that kind of thing is more about if both people are connected vertically to the cloud, to this, like if you're underneath the water and you have a snorkel, and the cloud would be anything above the water. Mm. And so when I send a message up there and you're also connected to up there through your snorkel or through your vertical sense of spirituality, you can connect and see that message that I sent to you there. But as long as we're stuck underneath the water, we can't do that because we're stuck in the horizontal plane. So maybe both of you and Robin were connected, not like just through the cloud or through the Akashic records or through whatever it is, through the morphogenic field that we're all connected to. So as long as your connection is vertical instead of horizontal, two people can do that.
Well, maybe that's all that psychic rating is then.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it's maybe on a obviously on a subconscious level, it's the person receiving. It's like we are amazed and our jaw drops when a psychic gives you information that how do you know that? Or, it's so affirming of their validity to you. Right. But maybe all it is you actually subconsciously shooting information up
to the cloud.
Vertical to the cloud, and then they're downloading it and you're able to connect, like you said. But you're the one actually participating. It's not like you're looking at the psychic to give you information you didn't know, as much as you already know it inside, and somehow you're connecting to the cloud information and they're able to pick up on it.
And it's like if you're looking up into the cloud or the morphogenic field or whatever you want to call all consciousness or whatever, God, it's almost like you're looking up there and there's a mirror. And the mirror is her message to you, but really it's the message you had there all along. Mm-hmm. But it's just reflecting back down to you your own mission or whatever you're supposed to do.
Interesting.
Because remember we were talking before about before we started the show, about what's her name, Carolyn Mace.
Oh yeah.
She talks about in her book, gosh, what is
Sacred Contract?
Sacred Contract, about how before we come into this life, we drink from the river of forgetfulness. And so when you drink of that, that's probably one of the prerequisites of coming into this life. And so I was thinking about this morning when I first woke up. It's so funny. That babies, when they're born, they're closer to, think about this, they're closer to the connection of God or all that is. Because they're maybe only like 2 weeks old or something. Mm. And so they're only 2 weeks removed from the eternal source from which they came. Whereas you and I
time even exists, though.
Right.
Right, but yeah.
But they are physically, I guess.
Right.
And so because their spirit lives in their physical body, maybe there's some thing there. But so when we drink of that river before we come into this life, maybe through spiritual work and spiritual practice and connecting with God, seeing a psychic, I don't know, seeing someone...
Well, having a prophetic word spoken over you, any kind of medicine man, shaman.
a psychedelic experience. Maybe these are like ways of piercing into that cloud of information that we chose to forget before we came here. And then like you were saying before we started the show, you thought in a past life you could have been like a Native American. And so maybe the time that you got exposed to that information, that's when it really hit you, and you said, yeah, maybe I am, maybe. And so you start reading books like this, and you start really resonating. Because who would have thought you would be into this stuff?
Just tell me about it.
I mean, 10 years ago, you were just drinking coffee, thinking about Paris.
Truly.
Thinking about the Eiffel Tower and the French.
Stuffing baguettes in my face.
Wearing French hats.
What's the French hat? What is that?
Those weird
a
French...
beret? You drew a symbol in the air that looked like a triangle on your head. I thought that is not a French hat.
That's the occultic Illuminati fish hat the Catholic priests wear.
Yeah. You're making me... You're making me into an Illuminati member, not a French baguette eating Parisian. No, I never expected to be on this path, but I think you're right. It's almost like you're drawn to the things that might help you remember a little bit from what was erased from you, if that's true, that you drank from the river of forgetfulness.
Just a reminder, right?
Yeah. I imagine that could be true. It's something that you're like, wow, this feels like home, and something in this, I've been there before, I've done this, or why would I feel like this? And I feel like you draw those things to you to remind you you're not crazy or of your origins to some extent. It is weird. I went on a hike in the hills a couple weeks ago. I think maybe it was last week with Robin, and we're up in the hills and we came across it's really neat. There's like a rock garden you pass through, and the rocks have a lot of quotes on them and stuff.
Oh, yeah. You posted some of those on Instagram.
I did post them on Instagram, yeah. And then we went beyond it, and there's like a giant circle, like a compass, and it had four stars, it was a 4-starred prong, like a compass, know. And so it was north, south, east, west, whatever. Well, Robin and I were talking about being on a retreat where there's a labyrinth, and you go into the middle of the labyrinth, and there's 6 little stone lookout points, if you want to call them, within the labyrinth.
Okay.
And you stand in each one and you get a different view. So it's really neat. You stand in one, you're overlooking beautiful oak trees. And then you move a little and you're looking at the stone doorway in the middle of this field. And then you look the other way and you can see the back of this, Spanish house. And you look the other way and you see, a rock garden. It's really cool. So you get a different vantage point from all of the 6 things. But we were talking about it, and Robin goes, I wonder why this one has 4 and the other one has 6. And I said, well, the 4 is like north, south, east, west. And I go, the 6 must have 2 other directions. And it just spilled out of my mouth. I said, it's obviously something like north, south, east, west, upward, and onward. And she's like, yeah, we kind of talked about it, and then we moved on. Well, I got
home other dimensions.
Yeah, I thought, I didn't even think that, but I thought that night I was journaling about it, and I'm like, upward and onward. I mean, it could be dimensional, but for sure it was like you've talked about, like is that your foot? I keep thinking it's Maggie.
No, I'm just circling my ankle.
I keep thinking about like you said, what was it, a lateral? What did you talk about?
Oh,
the vertical and horizontal. But I'm like, vertical living is so true. That we're not supposed to live on like a flat plane of north, south, east, west. In that direction, you're not going to get to a higher level of anything. I mean, you can travel and you can have adventures, and it's good to have a compass. But if you're not living laterally connected, vertically connected to your source, your adventures are still going to be in vain. They're still going to be on a surface level.
Flat, horizontal.
And that's, you know what I mean? I'm just like metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it was funny because I told you about this, an email from a former boss that I had. He'd always end his emails onward and upward.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well, you said that, and then I think within like this week, 3 different passages I read and some books I've been reading are talking about onward and upward. Onward and upward, onward and upward. I keep getting those reoccurring words in my brain, and those are the directions we should be striving to live, onward and upward. Because I mean, it goes along with everything else. Don't live in the past, be in the now, push forward. It's about a forward. It's propelling yourself forward, because there's nothing in the past that's going to be of any. I mean, you can get value from looking back and and reminiscing about things that you've done, or that, you know, it propels you to do things different in the future, though.
Yeah.
And the lessons you've learned, I think there's great power in the past, but you don't want to live there.
No. And
so onward and upward living is the way to, I don't know, it's like, let's all reset our compass a little bit and add multidimensional living.
Yeah. What's his name in that book was talking about that. He was talking about, in Gary Zukav's Seed of the Soul, he was talking about leaking your power. And one of the ways that happens is by reminiscing on the past, and by fretting over the future, and over fear and drama, and trying to get approval from people and worrying what they think about. And these are all ways of leaking your power. And it's funny because I was watching on Facebook, I follow Bleacher Report, and they posted a video of a couple of the NBA players from the 90s and 80s, and they're reminiscing about their championship season and all this stuff, and they're just talking about the psychology of the team back then, and how they wanted to win, and the strategies they use, and their record-setting year, and all this stuff. And I just was like, I watched it for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm just like, what's going on now? You know, that's great.
The glory days.
Yeah, let's not talk about like that Bruce Springsteen song, "The Glory Days." You know, it's like talk about a way to leak and to lose your power. Is to constantly reminisce about something that doesn't exist anymore. Those days do not exist anymore. You know? And it's one thing to gain a little bit of wisdom from that, and some insight, and some unique way of looking at things, but that's it, man.
You know, I keep getting that message everywhere. And again, in Denise Lynn's book, she's so cool because she goes through a lot, and she talks about like how important it is to look at the past. And you know, in her case, she's Cherokee Indian or half or whatever. So it's important to go to those places and appreciate where you've come from. But it's cool already in this book, she's not talking about returning to a time that you can't go to anymore. She's like, the world is completely different now.
Right.
Those ways are gone. It doesn't mean that. She talks about the spirit, like the heart is more important than actually living, you know, in a tribe off the land, because she goes, those days for the most part, they are gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
We can find new ways to take the important parts of them with us into the future. But it's just really neat in the way that she's like, no, it's okay. If anybody you think, oh, she's going to be the one to be like, let's get back to living how we used to live, and all that stuff. But she doesn't say that. And she said it in such a great way. And I don't know if I can.
Good book.
It's such a good book, but it's just the neatest thing, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I think it's important to understand the past in terms of certain things, but we don't need to dwell and to live there.
Right.
You know, Dr. Massey the other day I was talking to him, and he was saying how the energetic frequency that we have is that we will live out, we will be the solution to the biggest family drama that was going on at the time that we were born. So whatever that was for our parents, we will live out the solution to that, whether we want to or not, or whether we know it or not. And, you know...
So what does that mean on like
a practical level?
Yeah.
Well...
does he give an example?
He did, and I have to go back and listen again to it, but, you know... So, looking at the past can be helpful. Right. But it's not somewhere where we want to live, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to stay there. I wonder what was your big family drama, do you know, when you were born?
I don't know.
So I wonder if it's possible to get in touch with us if you don't have any family members left, or ones that will even remember or want to share these things with you.
You can, like, if you were to get a session with him, you can, I asked him that, there's ways that you can figure that out.
A session with Dr. Massey?
Uh-huh.
So
you can figure that out.
What is that kind of a thing called? Is it like a...
I don't know what, but they've got certain techniques that they can use to figure out what it was.
Who was it we talked to, or a book I read, where they're able to help you pinpoint things by going into columns? It's all very structured. Like, do you remember this? I think it's a book by a woman. Oh,
I don't think you told me about this.
Yeah, and she, I don't know if it was on a Hay House thing we heard or not, but it was basically like to find some traumas Oh, no. You know who it was?
Who?
Is, oh my gosh.
You need some more ginkgo.
I do need ginkgo. I need to wake up.
Ginkgo
Too much
biloba.
sassy and not enough ginkgo. Oh my gosh, my brain.
Alpha brain.
What is that book that we have that I love? It's all about healing. It's like Gilbert Renaud's Recall Healing.
Oh,
but it's
the Emotion Code.
Emotion Code.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bradley Nelson.
Bradley Nelson.
Oh my
we had him on the
gosh.
show.
There we go. Ginkgo. You had ginkgo.
I got the ginkgo.
You got the
biloba.
ginkgo.
Yeah, we need to I'll put a link to his interview we did.
Bradley Nelson. Yes. So when I got his book, there we go.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, it basically breaks it into quadrants, which sounds crazy.
Okay,
But
breaks
it's like,
what into quadrants?
Like, say you have some repressed his whole work is you have these emotions hanging out in your tissues and organs and body that you haven't expressed or you haven't been able to deal with, and they're causing problems. Okay. So if you can release the emotion behind the thing, then your body's going to be able to let go of whatever trouble. So emotional healing. But he basically, like, say you had a problem with arthritis or something. He'll be like, okay, let's get to the root of it. And by a series of questions, you'll be able to narrow it down to if it was a male or female trauma, what time in your life, what column. And then you go down this column and you'll know, like, exactly, and it'll tell you what your trauma was. I mean, talk about bizarre.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's got a whole column. Remember
super crazy.
Where did we see that? Was that in his book?
It's in his book, yeah.
Because you and I did that.
Actually, I think he did. I think in that interview, he did one for me.
That's right. It's like a series of filters, kind of like, okay, is it this, this, or this? And then if it's that, then these next things appear.
Right.
And you go down this.
Yeah, and then they narrow in, and it's like, oh, you were blank as a child, or you had this fear because of, and it gets very specific. And then you do this crazy thing. It sounds totally, voodoo, where you take these magnets and you basically run them up the front of your body and over your head, down your spine. I mean, reading the book gives you a really clear understanding why there's healing that way.
Does he have Does he tell you where to get the magnets?
Yeah. And they can be regular old magnets off your fridge.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have a series of multiple magnets or what?
No, I don't think so. I haven't read it for a long time, but
okay.
And I never followed through. I read the book and I thought, oh, there's power here, and like everything. Then you get on to your next guest, and there's something new to go down that road. And so, but yeah, because I wonder often, like a lot of times people don't even know what the heck it is that they're stuffing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have family, or you're adopted, or your family isn't willing to talk to you about it, so I'm trying to think, like,
passed away or something.
So how did Dr. Massey say that? You're here to
you will live out the solution of the greatest drama that was going on at the time of your birth in your family. So if someone's born and during their birth process, maybe their family is going through a trial where someone can go to prison for many years, or maybe someone's born during a time of great financial despair, or someone's being arrested, or someone just got diagnosed with a disease. Gosh, the way he explains it is so powerful. So
he's saying that person that's born into that will live out? Mm-hmm. Like, instead, they'll be the person going to live out that sentence in prison? They will
create a situation where their biological brain, because the biological brain, according to him, is forced to reenact physically within the body its beliefs of the personality. So whatever you believe, even if it's not true, your biological brain will carry that out. And so I'm not sure how that looks. He's probably got a lot of people that he's dealt with that has stories of how that played out in different people's lives. But it's crazy. It makes so much sense. The first thing that sprang to mind was how true that is with my ex-fiance, who ended up passing away. Committing suicide. But what happened is I think it was literally 10 days before he was born, his father died in a trucking accident. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and so his mom's dealing with this grief, huge and pregnant, and 10 days later gives birth to him. Uh-huh. And his whole life, from when he could first talk, his mom said, it was his biggest thing in life was not having his dad, not having a dad he always longed for. Even in his obituary, it says, growing up with the father he always longed for. I mean, it's super tragic and super sad. That gave me chills. I know. And when I read that, I was like, isn't that true that when you knew him and then you knew the tragic story of his ending,
that's all he wanted in life, and he couldn't have that dad. So it's almost like he was so dysfunctional and did so many bad things out of hurt because he never had that. He always felt robbed by that. And then I realized he was so messed up in the end there. He probably realized that he couldn't be a proper dad to his own son that he brought into the world, and how effed up everything was. So he set himself up to be able to take himself out, like the same way, not the way his dad did, but in this tragic way, and leave behind another generation to deal with the same problem. But that's exactly what was going on when he was born, and that it literally haunted him his whole life.
Man, that's so
I think it's true.
There's so many times where this Dr. Massey was sharing a story of what was it? It was someone who one of his clients had what are fibromyalgia? I think fibromyalgia it essentially paralyzes you as it continues to progress, I think.
Okay.
I may be wrong about that. It could be a different disease, but I think it was that. And so this guy was paralyzed, and he prior to him being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, he was sort of the hero of the family. Everyone sort of looked to him. Everyone looked to him for answers. Everyone thought he was the most stable one, and blah, blah, blah. And everyone went to him for help. And what happened was prior to him being diagnosed, he couldn't handle it anymore, and he tried to commit suicide, but failed. But no one knew it. No one knew what happened. And then so I think a few months later, he was diagnosed with this fibromyalgia and eventually becomes paralyzed. And so what they had figured out was that someone, I think his dad or his uncle, had tried to commit suicide as well during the time that he was born. And the way that this guy was able to not end his own life was to create a condition like fibromyalgia that would paralyze him
and keep him
from committing suicide. It's that kind of stuff.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So all of these things that happen to us aren't just things that happen to us. They're not random. I got a stomach ache because I ate this, or what's his name says in that book, The Seed of the Soul, that every interaction that people have, there's a karmic reaction there, and there's an energetic reason. Yeah, there's a unique energy that's happening when you and I are talking right now. Like we're creating. Remember, what's his name was talking about this on Oprah's Soul Series. What was the name of that pastor?
Rob Bell.
Rob Bell. And he kind of alludes to this, is that when you and I communicate, we're creating a third entity between us, and we're both giving to this extra, almost like a cloud that exists in between us, and you're giving to it and I'm giving to it, and it's a third entity that you and I create by having a communication. And so, where was I going with that?
Oh gosh,
where's that ginkgo?
Oh wait, hold on. Where is that ginkgo? You said Dr. Massey was talking about how there's just nothing random. Okay.
There's nothing random that happens to us, and so everything that happens for a reason. So every interaction that we have, every communication we have with some other person, that's creating karma. That's creating karma within them. It's creating karma within the bigger universe. It's creating an action-reaction type of thing. And so someone just randomly diagnosed with fibromyalgia, well, there's a whole history there. We're not just randomly... We don't just randomly...
have any of this stuff happen all of a sudden for no reason.
Isn't that stuff so weird?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
So I wonder how this would play out. And in my situation, I guess what was happening when I was born is my mom was really... I think the biggest thing is she was fearful because she had lost a baby before me, between my sister and I. And I really think there was a ton of fear with my own workings with Dr. Massey when we were there a couple of years ago. I went and worked, and we did some recall healing type stuff. And even then, a lot of my problems with my digestion and stuff, he helped me work through that it was this baby that my mom had lost, which I never even thought much about,
Right, because we don't think about these things.
No, we don't think about them. And he had me draw pictures of my family, and then I had to, it was crazy, but I worked through it even I became the baby in the fetal position and had to answer questions he was asking me. And then I had to be my mom talking to the baby. And then I had to be me letting my brother, who didn't make it into the world, go and release him. And I mean, it was this really...
it was a boy.
Yeah, it was a boy. And it was this really emotional, kind of odd process that felt a little goofy. But afterward, you think, wow, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of stuff stored in there. And
something's there.
Sometimes it's walking through the motion, even if you don't feel like it's doing anything. But I knew it had awakened and sparked something that needed to be dealt with within me, you know. And but I thought, okay, if that's the biggest thing that was going on when I was born, I wonder how that translates into what that means for me. Does that mean I'm here to overcome those things and give the fear and the birthing and the fear around birthing change that story? Or is it that, you know, God forbid you think, well, my mom lost that baby, am I too destined to work out losing a baby like later when they're older? Or like what would be the karmic end to that kind of drama?
Your thing is probably working out the solution to that. So it's not necessarily that you're destined to relive what your mom went through, but you are working out the solution to that. And so
that's interesting.
And I think that you can figure out a lot of this stuff through what our frustrations are in life, what irritates us and what angers us, and what our fears are. And then once we figure out that kind of stuff, which most people know what bothers them or whatever, and then sitting and trying to get to the root of why that is, maybe doing some meditation or something.
Interesting.
And contemplation. And sometimes I found recently that in meditation, I mean, there's a huge benefit, I think, to meditating and just clearing your mind.
Yeah.
I like doing that. But then recently I've been doing more contemplation, where I've been actively sort of like trying to connect vertically to God and then ask myself questions. Why do I get so frustrated and angry at the amount of noise that exists out here? And I did a video about this recently on YouTube. But why? So it's got to, eventually it comes down to either fear or love.
Everything, right?
Figuring out what that is. And so by sitting and being quiet and trying to ask your higher self these questions, I think has really been helping me.
You seem like you've been changing.
Yeah, that book, Seed of the Soul, man, that changed me.
Has that been one of the biggest influences?
Yeah, it's been huge.
What is the book, if you had to think of one if you had to pick one that's been the most influential?
Oh gosh, I'd say recently, I mean, People's History of the United States was huge. That opened my mind to the history, the real history of what's going on. I think the Four Agreements has been one of the big ones, even though it's so simple and so easy.
Yeah.
If people read and acted upon the Four Agreements, man, can you imagine? That book is powerful.
I think the world as we know it would cease to exist.
What about you?
Yeah, those are good ones.
The Woman Who Runs with Wolves?
Yeah, that's one. I'm trying to think. That's a really hard question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Figure out what book is like most powerful to you.
Right. Gosh, that's such a loaded question, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that one. I have to think about that.
Yeah.
I know there's at least two. I feel like there's at least two others, and
there's been some books recently
in
the last year and a half that you've read that you've just said, oh my gosh, this book has changed my life, but I can't remember what those were either.
I feel like this is going to be one of them, the one I'm reading now.
Yeah?
I do. I feel like really connected to it. There was one that I read. Maggie's rolling around on the ground.
Oh, man.
There was one that I read that was really powerful about going on a quest, a vision quest.
Oh, really?
It wasn't by Denise Lynn. She has one called Quest, but it was somebody that loaned me the book, and I'll have to find the title. I'll look it up here while you talk, but it was really, really powerful, and I read those during the coffee enema days. I read the whole Women Who Run with Wolves during coffee enema sessions, along with that other book that I just talked about. And that, to me, I felt really, really, I think it was really eye-opening to see how much power there was in nature. That was one of the first ones that really changed my spirit toward not being afraid of maybe a thing like a Vision Quest that 5 years before I would have thought was just insane.
Really?
Yeah.
Going on a Vision Quest?
Oh, yeah. Especially out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm scared of animals, and I'm scared of this, and I'm scared of that, but I read this.
We're so different when we first started going out.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Because I was all into that stuff at that time, too.
Yeah.
Let me read a couple emails while you do that.
I'll just find the title because it's really good.
Okay, but really quickly before I get to the emails, I just want to tell you a couple things about the Bellicon Rebounder. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Bellicon. Kate, I know you are, and I am. The Bellicon is so cool. It's like a little mini trampoline. It's not like the kind of trampolines that you would jump on as kids, although it feels like that. And I don't know if you guys have been familiar with jumping on a lot of these rebounders that you get at Walmart and things, but they really damage your joints. And for those that are unfamiliar, rebounding is such a great way to increase the endorphins in your body. When I get up in the morning and I do rebounding, it feels so good. It just feels like you got this adrenaline rush, and it's amazing. But what people do rebounding for is to build bone density. Bone density is, a problem in our culture with so many people that are drinking soda and Coke and leaching calcium out of their bones in order to buffer their blood pH. And that's what happens, is that your blood will pull calcium out of the bones in order to maintain that perfect pH. So bone density is huge, and we lose it as we get older. And so bone density is really, really important to do strength exercises. But I do rebounding 20 minutes a day, 25 minutes a day. And the Bellicon is just the best because it's made with like flexi rope, and it's got foldable legs, so you can just fold it. I just fold the legs and put it against the wall, and it takes up no room. And it's totally silent too. So if you are living in an apartment, you can just move it room to room and set it down on the floor, and you're not going to hear any squeaking or anything like that. It's a great way to build endorphins, to build bone density. It's a cellular exercise, so it stimulates every cell in your body, which is super cool. And where can you go, to work out your, pancreas, or where can you go to work out your colon, or your, the strength of your pelvic floor, or your eyes, or these types of things? You can't go to the gym and work out your pelvic floor. I don't know. If you did that, people would look at you strange. But you can do all these kinds of things on the rebounder, and it's also great for cleansing the lymphatic system. And the lymph system is huge for cleansing out toxicities from the body. So it's a part of my strategy. I've been using it for a couple years now. I used to jump on the cheap ones, and man, I'm glad I got the rebounder, the Bellicon. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out on this show page, 426. And also, I want to let you know about the sauna. These are two of the most favorite products we have. The sauna is great for, what is it not great for? It's just great to sweat out fat-soluble toxins, heavy metals, and chemicals, and poisons that we're exposed to just by breathing the air, chemtrails, or if you don't believe in chemtrails, just the pollution in the air that gets stored in our fat cells. And it increases the heat shock proteins, which increases your immune system by up to 40%. And it's great. You don't have to knock a wall out. These things are portable. You can break it down and let a friend borrow it. And they're just amazing machines. And I go in there every day for about 40 minutes and watch a documentary. I love it. I really love it. It just feels like a little alone time, a little oasis. And like I said, you don't have to knock a wall out of your house. So you can just go in there every single day. Kate and I both do it, and we just love it so, so much. The sauna, the far infrared heat is great. It allows you to boost your immune system, increase circulation. There's so many benefits. Go onto our sauna page if you want to learn all the benefits. We talked to Phil Wilson, the creator of it, and as well as there's a bunch of different videos on there from Dr. Brian Clement. as well as Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and a promo video at the top of the page if you want to learn more about everything that it does. I can't explain it all here, but it's just an awesome piece of machinery. So if you're interested in it, how about this? Just go to extremehealthradio.com/426, and all the stuff that we've talked about in the show will be there. The show notes, the brought to you by the Organifi, the Extrema, the Bellicon, as well as the Sauna, to make it easy. extremehealthradio.com/426. Okay, let's get back to these emails here. Brenda writes in, hi, Kate and Justin. Wow, I'm just listening to your latest episode on YouTube, and it was such a nice surprise to hear Kate start off by reading my email. I love listening to FFAF, Free for All Friday, since you guys are into so many of the things that I'm into, and you're such a blast of positive energy every time I listen. On another subject, I'm ready to order the Berkey water purifier through your site, but I wanted to check in to see if you still love it. I noticed you sell another system as well. There were some negative reviews on Amazon about the Berkey water tasting like rubber, and I have some chemical sensitivities, so I wanted to get your input before I placed the order. I think I could probably replace any rubber washers with silicone washers. That sounded like it might be the issue that people were talking about. All right, Brenda, thank you. By the way, Brenda did end up purchasing a Berkey filter through our link, so we appreciate that. You can find that link in our store.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, that helps us a lot. I think you're really going to love it. We love our Berkey. I've never tasted any rubber. Have you?
Never.
Yeah, I've never tasted any rubber. And Mike Adams did a review of the Berkey filter, and it was his top. It was the filter that was the most powerful. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the water filter that was the most powerful in terms of getting rid of toxic heavy metals and things. And I love the Berkey. I think it's awesome.
I'm really super sensitive to tastes and smells and chemicals and things. I haven't personally. I was curious to see if I would. Even the first round that we did, I think didn't we filter it once all the way, or we let it sit for a while, and then you get that first filter done, and then you're ready to move on.
But we did 2 cycles of that.
I think that's right. I never tasted anything.
And obviously, the cleaner the water you put in, the less the filters have to work, so the longer they last, but also the better quality water you get. So that's why we're going to be putting well water in there too. So the Berkey's awesome. I love it. Dan,
it's been a good one.
Writes in, hello, Justin and Kate. I just recently tuned into your radio station and was listening to Brian Peskin about fish oil and his book, The PEO Solution. You mentioned after he spoke that you were going to try his product, and at that point, you would disclose where you could purchase it. I was wondering what your conclusion was and where I could get it. Thanks, Dan. Dan, that product is called Yes Supplements, and if you go to extremehealthradio.com/yes, you can listen to that. Pick up that. I think it's just a redirect to Amazon, and you can purchase it on there. And we'll get a little commission. But I do take it. We have a full bottle of it in the cupboard right now.
And where do we get it?
What's that?
Where do we get it? How does one get it?
Oh.
Are we allowed to say?
Yeah, extremehealthradio.com/yes.
Oh, yeah. You mean to order it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Why were we not allowed to say? Were we not allowed to say for a while?
Well, on that episode, I thought at the end of the episode I mentioned it, but Peskin is not involved with Yes. I don't think he's got any business with Yes.
I see.
But he doesn't want people even thinking that he does because he wants to maintain integrity.
I see.
But if you're interested in fish oil and whether or not to take it, listen to Peskin.
Were you laughing at Maggie?
Laughing at Maggie.
Maggie just jumped up in my lap.
So listen to the show we did with Brian Peskin, and also episode 420. What was Adam Bergstrom? His most recent.
The most recent here, I can tell you. 424. 420. No, 25.
425?
Yes.
No, 420.
Oh my gosh, I'm off today. 423. Yes, you know why? Because I wasn't on that one.
Oh, you were?
And I don't have my notes here. Look at how you are. You can't survive without me.
I know, right? 423. So both of those guys talk about fish oil, and if you're wondering whether or not they're healthy, listen to both those shows, and you can make your own conclusion. All right, so what were you trying to find?
I can't find it.
You can't find it?
No, but I did find an awesome book called The Natural Man by Henry David Thoreau.
Oh, wow.
That looks really good. No, when I find that, I will. I'll find the way. I'll text my friend who lent it to me.
Okay.
And it was some really great book about a natural kind of vision quest. It was great.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was great.
Gretchen writes in, hi there. I wanted to reach out to you concerning Anthony William. Your interview with him was one of the first. Did I read this before?
I don't know.
Was one of the first I heard. Fast forward to today, and a friend and I are running a Facebook group of those of us on a healing journey via the book and the protocols. I attended the live event last month, had a reading last week. Wow, a crazy trip. What a crazy trip. We'll also be interviewing him next month. Have you guys been implementing his suggestions and experiencing improvements? There have been many in the group who have improved dramatically, including myself. You guys just popped into my head, so I felt compelled to reach out.
Oh, that's
Hope
nice.
all is well, Gretchen.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been sort of implementing his... He mentioned to me about prostate health, and so I've been taking some herbs and supplements for prostate, as well as doing the ancient Taoist exercise, the deer exercise, where you know how you can pull your anus to your genitals, kind of, and like exercise,
like flex, yeah.
So I do that when I'm on the rebounder.
Oh, that's good.
And that's a great way to. The rebounder is really good because it strengthens that area in people.
Yeah.
So I do that at the same time as rebounding. So
wow, good for you. So yeah, you did, and I did a few things on and off what he's told me to do as far as add in different supplements and tinctures and things, and I found it to be helpful. And I, anytime you're taking stuff like cat's claw and olive leaf extract is going to be helpful, I think. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Thanks, Gretchen.
Yeah.
I have to say, too, we got a new Patreon.
Oh, really?
As our show started from Adam.
Nice.
Adam Gall.
Nice.
Woohoo. Thanks, awesome. Adam. Buck a show.
That's so nice.
It's huge. Thanks, Adam. That's so nice.
Wow. That's so cool.
People like you keep us going.
Oh, man. I love when people do that. That's
I know.
So nice.
Makes our whole day, huh?
Adam Gall. I'll have to write to him and thank him for that.
Yeah, that's thrilling. It's fun to see him pop up when you're doing the middle of a show, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's really cool.
Jeanette writes in, hi, I wanted to respond to your podcast 413. Gosh, that 413 episode is...
Which one was that?
That was the one on Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
I want to respond to your podcast 413 on Christianity, New Age, and Mystery. Sounds a lot like the concrete shod-style Christians you're talking about are the ones who have never heard or had education about the Holy Spirit and that aspect of being a human. There's little romance to getting to know God personally if there are no mysteries to him as a person and this life. You may be entertained by looking up info online about the Hebrew personification of the Holy Spirit as a feminine presence. New Testament translations through a male aspect on that part of the Godhead, and suddenly it becomes a father, not a mothering aspect. Changes a lot of perspectives, especially coming from American popular Christians' patriarchal and law-style mindset. With a little winky emoticon.
A little winky. A winky.
Love listening to your shows, Jeanette.
Oh, that's nice.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
What do you think? Could God be a girl?
Oh, wow. So people are going to love that one.
Well, God's an eagle.
God's an eagle.
It says in the Bible. Let his wings cover you.
Oh. God apparently is a shapeshifter.
Is a shape-shifting eagle.
Shape-shifting eagle.
So that's interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we're all on this journey, aren't we? Trying to figure out. I think if we're living vertically and we're connecting with God, then...
We're all connected, right?
Yeah. God can be whoever he wants to be.
What did you think about the latest show that we did? I think our latest show was a Free For All Friday show. Were you on the Rick Simpson one?
I was. Yeah.
Oh, you were?
The Fireball.
That guy. He is so fired up, isn't he?
He is one fired up dude.
Yeah.
That was a good show.
That was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I felt it was timely, too, because we've been talking to many people about it lately, and, as a preventative, but we also have a friend who was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, right.
And she spent a couple weeks in Mexico at the Oasis of Hope, I believe. And unfortunately, they even said her advanced stage, they would recommend some sort of a slight chemo.
Oh, right.
So she's doing that, but along with it, she's watched Rick's documentary, I think, and ended up ordering online some Rick Simpson made oil, and she's going about it. So I think that our show with him was really great because there's always somebody being diagnosed, and there's always a show to share. So I feel like this is a really good one to just share with everybody who might be able to save someone else's life through treatment. We got an email, I think, also from a listener who it didn't help him at all. Do you remember that?
Oh, gosh.
That's a good one.
Shoot, did I put that in
your queue?
Shoot, okay.
It was Jonathan.
Jonathan Pohl, was that right?
Jonathan.
Do you want me to read that?
No.
It's kind of long.
Yeah, no, don't read it, but I think it's interesting that we got an email, and...
That's right.
Yeah, it's funny. We can't be... Obviously, we're not responsible for people's decisions and what they're doing, but it is cool to get somebody that emailed in with a different side of the story about how he was taking this particular therapy, and it kind of worsened his symptoms and didn't help him at all. But he's experimenting around with the different kinds of oil, whether they contain the CBD or just the THC.
Yeah.
So this is his experience with it, which is really cool to hear about too. So I'm not saying, we're not saying it's everyone's answer, but from a lot of stuff that we've heard and seen and talked to people about, it can be super, super powerful tool to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, I want to let people know too that the Truth About Cancer is coming up.
Right.
And if you have not registered for that, please do. We'll put a link in the show notes here. There's links on the top right now inside of our website. If you're listening to this in the future, it is extremehealthradio.com/truthaboutcancer. And you can watch the trailer, and it's like a 9-part series where Ty Bollinger, our friend, goes around the world. And notice I didn't say around the globe, around the world. Thoughts for another day. But he talks to all of these natural cancer doctors, and it's awesome. But check this out. This is an article, we'll close up here in a second, from March Against Monsanto, and the title of the article is "Damning Research Proves Chemo and Cancer Industry is a Huge Scam." A shocking study that you probably have never heard about proves the entire cancer industry is nothing but a giant deceptive fraud. According to a study from Washington University, chemotherapy kills healthy cells, or causes healthy cells to release WNT16B, a protein that actually helps cancer cells to flourish. The research team showed undeniably that chemotherapy damages the DNA of healthy cells. A critical factor in this is long-lasting issue that persists long after treatments are concluded. This is exemplified by secondary cancers, which likely return after initial cancer diagnosis in a vast majority of survivors. Secondary cancers often originate in an entirely separate area of the body from the first diagnosis and are typically much more aggressive and harder to treat.
Oh, great.
So there's a study that's showing that chemotherapy actually causes healthy cells to
mutate into unhealthy ones. Brother,
9 out of 10 oncologists would refuse chemotherapy, and there's a link to a...
I like that Rick Simpson talked about that on his show too.
I know, right?
Yeah, he claimed a bunch of doctors that suggest these treatments for their patients would not take it themselves. Rick's cool because he said, like, I'll take whatever you're taking with you and show you how I'm not scared. It's never killed anybody.
Yeah.
He's a fireball, but that's a horrible article.
Yeah.
Are you going to link to it?
Yeah, we'll link to it.
Man, what a mess.
Show notes, yeah. WNT16B, a protein that usually helps cancer cells to flourish. So it causes healthy cells to release this kind of protein.
Lovely.
And then that protein causes cancer cells just to go nuts.
So upon hearing that, I mean, how could anyone in their right mind say that they're not trying to kill us?
But here's the question, though. This is the thing that's weird. Why is it that people in people in the alternative want to bash traditional medicine, right? Mm-hmm. But how do you explain someone like my mom?
What about her?
Well, she had chemotherapy, radiation, stem cell therapy, a bone marrow transplant, and surgery. So she had 5. The 3 ones are chemo, radiation, and surgery. And she had the bone marrow transplant and a transfusion. So how is it that God spared her, which is probably the case? But how do you... It's so weird because someone like me, I should have a story where, like Ty Bollinger, where 7 of my family members took chemotherapy and they all died horrible deaths. Mm-hmm. But then you have someone like my mom
who did it all, and she's kicking.
She's still kicking. And she hasn't even done any cleanses.
Right. And she's not the most positive person either, which is, it's not her positivity that's keeping her alive.
Right.
At this point.
So is it just a supernatural thing? Or what is it?
I don't know.
But all I know is I still respond to chemotherapy and this way of treating people in the same way that I would if she had died from the chemo. Mm-hmm. Because it's just not natural.
Right.
So somehow she was just like the George Burns, the guy that smokes until he's 110.
Got really lucky.
Yeah. But I think in general...
See, it's funny. One of my clients a long time ago when I was doing hair, she said something that I'll never forget. It stuck with me. She said that she was at church on one Sunday and the pastor said, "We are all immortal until God decrees it." And that just stuck with me. I thought, I don't know if I agree with that. It was comforting when you really soak that in to be like, I cannot die until God basically gives the go ahead. And that makes you feel kind of safe. Because you're like, God's in control, and I'm basically living I don't have to be afraid of death. I don't have to worry about anything, because until God says that I'm going to die, it's like I can't die until God says. Right. So if you trust that God is, in charge of you, it takes away a lot of the fear. But then again, I thought, well, I don't know. This day and age, I don't know if I believe we're all immortal until God decrees it. It's like, we're all immortal until you get a cancer diagnosis and you believe it. Or I don't think that disease is from God and we're supposed to be wiped out in these mass numbers from a disease like cancer. That just doesn't seem like... It seems like, sure, God is ultimately the one, who will keep your mom here if he wants to keep, regardless of the situation, and she's going to be this amazing fighter and, still be here today when Ty's whole family isn't. But... I just don't know if I agree with that sentence. I used to find it comforting, and now I find it a little disturbing. It's like, well, look at what we're doing to hurry that process and play God.
Right, we're almost playing God by eating McDonald's and doing all that, and
shooting ourselves up with God knows what kind of vaccines, and it's like we're putting ourselves out there in a way that's never.
It's not even natural. Like it's not even anything that could have existed. It's so unnatural and weird that platitudes like that just don't apply, because what we're doing to our bodies now just didn't exist hundreds of thousands of years ago. So it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. God can choose to bring somebody back from the brink of death, or see them through chemo and cancer, and it has more for them to do here. But I don't know. I don't think that that's what God intended for people by doing all these things to their bodies. And I think we're just playing God to a big extent,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think we're playing God by how we live our life. Like we're playing God by just destroying our physical makeup.
I know.
Our DNA.
Seems like it, doesn't
and
it?
not treating it like a sacred gift,
Right. I mean, that's where the whole, treat your body like a temple. I mean, if we actually treated our body like a temple, I don't think we'd have a ton of these diseases, I
agree.
But yeah, I thought that just stuck with me, though. We are all immortal until God decrees it.
But we're immortal anyway.
We're mortal anyway.
Yeah, our bodies are not. But
you're right. There's a lot that could be tweaked with that sentence.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting, so I think we're going to wrap up the show here.
I liked it. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging with us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. If you guys would like to support our show, you can go to our store. We've got lots of cool stuff there. And if you would like to bookmark our Amazon link, you can do that. A lot of people do that, and we appreciate it. And if you'd like to become a patron,
you could be our next patron, getting your name read on the next show. No, seriously though, we're so grateful when those come through, like Adam's today, and we like to give you guys a little shout out for making it possible. So
yeah, totally.
Please be our next patron.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. That helps everything to continue along. And another way to support us is just to share our stuff on Facebook. If you see our post and you like it, share it with your friends, and we'd appreciate that. So stay tuned to our show. If you want the show notes, we talked about a lot of stuff here today. If you would like to get the show notes, you can do that at extremehealthradio.com. / the Slashy Awards. What is this? 426?
Hold on.
The Slashy Awards.
426.
426. So oursite.com/426, and you'll be able to get the show notes. Slashy Awards.
Slashy Award.
So yeah, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.
I think your Sweet Sassy wins the Slashy Award. It's natural hot cocoa / coffee.
So that's
slashy.
It's a slashy.
Let's call it the Slashy. The Sweet Slash. Oh, great. This could get weird.
Yeah, that's too hard to say. That's not going to happen. Yeah, so thank you everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it so much. And if there's ever anything we can do for you, please let us know. And we'll be back next week. We got a couple shows lined up. And stay tuned if you want to join our newsletter list, and stay tuned to all of our shows. You can do that by texting the word Get Healthy to 33444 or going to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe. And we'd love to have you join. We've got thousands of people on there, and we love when new people sign up to our newsletter. So you can keep up to date with all of our shows and not miss any of the live shows or the past show archives and stuff like that. So that's it, right?
I think that's a wrap.
Okay, cool.
We will catch you guys then on the next episode.
Nice.
Hey, everybody. This is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
That's so good.
Oh my gosh.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as